A report from the UN World Meteorological Organization (WMO) in November confirmed that year 2023 is set to go on record as the warmest, with global temperatures rising 1.4 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. Devastating heat waves, droughts, and other extreme weather events left no corner of the globe untouched. The Global South, which contributes only about 4% of greenhouse gas emission, continues to bear the brunt of these catastrophic impacts, with Nigeria having its fair share.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we invite you to take your seats as the opening ceremony will be starting.
It was in this context that the annual climate conference, the UN Climate Negotiations COP28, which held in Dubai, United Arab Emirates, provided another opportunity for world leaders to seek solutions to the warming climate. The summit opened with the operationalization of the historic Loss and Damage Fund launched last year at COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, with high-income countries making pledges, a move which to many demonstrated the commitment of world leaders to helping vulnerable African communities cope with severe losses and damage they face from climate impacts.
The corporations that have been responsible for those historical damages on our climate should also be held accountable. They should pay for their infraction. Corporations that are destroying the environment in the Niger Delta should be made to pay within those kind of mechanisms. So we didn't get that.
Despite immense pressure from oil and gas interests, COP28 concluded with the first international agreement to tackle fossil fuels, the main driver of climate change, marking the first ever global stocktake since the Paris Agreement.
The global shift to renewables is inevitable. The only question is how much heating our planet will endure before it happens. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change is recommending ending our addiction to coal by 2030 in OECD countries and 2040 for the rest of the world.
We should consider the footprint of a few nations responsible for a deeply troubling ecological debt towards many others. It would only be fair to find suitable means of remitting the financial debts.
President Biden and I have made the largest climate investment in the history of our country, and some have said the world. Roughly $1 trillion over the next 10 years.
There are no limits.
The UAE consensus has tagged calls for the world to transition away from fossil fuels in energy systems so as to achieve net zero by 2050, a move which did not go down well with fossil fuel-dependent economies like Nigeria, who opted instead for decarbonization of oil and gas for cleaner fuels. But for countries like Nigeria, whose economy still depends largely on revenue from fossil fuels, this was quite concerning.
Fossil fuel is about the only item on our export list, the most prominent item on our export list. So that is the foreign exchange that comes from there builds up our foreign reserve and build up our foreign exchange, build up our ability for industrialization, build up our ability for job creation, and build up everything that defines our sovereignty. It depends on it.
Nigeria's focus for COP28 included securing funds to implement its Energy Transition Plan (ETP), launched at COP27, and raising additional finance from the $100 billion pledge made by the Global North to support mitigation and adaptation in developing countries. President Bola Tinubu, who was attending the summit for the first time, said his government has initiated programs to transition from fossil fuels, but will require $10 billion every year until 2060 to achieve its transition plan.
We are committed to critical steps to reduce methane emission by ensuring flared gas are eliminated.
He criticized developed nations for failing to honor their pledge of $100 billion to poorer countries to mitigate the effects of climate change.
Thank you very much, President Tinubu.
Nigeria's delegation to the Dubai summit seemed to overshadow the issues when it was forced to deny reports that it sponsored over 1,400 delegates for a jamboree at COP28. Despite the controversy, the government says it secured several deals on the sidelines through its agencies, including the NNPCL, one of which is geared towards commercializing the country's liquefied natural gas for domestic and international markets.
The decarbonization drive and the charter is not just an ethical imperative, but also a strategic imperative for even the national oil company like Nigeria.
We participated in what is arguably the biggest nature event at COP28, the High Ambition Coalition for Nature and People. This is basically designed to ensure that we protect 30% of land and 30% of our seas to address climate issues.
Other outcomes of the Dubai summit include an agreement to triple the world's renewable energy capacity and double its energy efficiency by 2030, as well as a call on countries to accelerate emissions reduction from road transport. The Dubai summit covers a full scope of climate issues, providing direction for the next round of national climate commitments, that's the NDCs, due in 2025. Africa and indeed Nigeria stand to benefit from the Loss and Damage Fund and indeed other climate finance if fully implemented. The continent is expected to now push for efficient and effective deployment of the funds for the benefit of vulnerable communities. Nkoli Omoldu.
As a player, there's nothing better than the roar of your crowd. But in Nigeria, there's a roar that may not be heard again. With fewer than 50 lions left, they could be extinct in the next few years, from loss of habitat and prey, and snares set for illegal bushmeat. So please, say no to illegal bushmeat. Let's keep the roar alive for Nigeria, because poaching steals from us all.